August 2nd at 6 p.m. At the town hall. We have an addition to the agenda, and that is the authority to act for the town highway foreman and town administrator. So we need a motion to make changes to the proposed agenda. Somebody want to make that motion? Okay. Any further discussion?
Where did you say, Joe, that was gonna go?
It's not gonna go, it's been added. So-
I know, where is
Well, it's
it
gonna be
going to
under
be?
highway.
I should say under highway.
Yeah. And also, since the sheriffs are here, we might want to move them up to after the minutes so they can go on and do their thing.
Okay.
If everybody's okay with that?
And Joe, I was just wondering about other business. It seems like, we've kind of dropped the other business, item from our agendas. Could we put that back on now?
If you're so desire, yeah.
I don't see it on there.
No, it's not, I don't know why, but it's,
Okay.
if you want to add other business, we can.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay. So somebody make a motion to adopt the amended agenda, say aye. Opposed? Okay, so we have the minutes of the special meeting on Monday, the 26th. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? If not, somebody make a motion to accept the minutes of July 26th, which was a special meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. Okay, Sheriff, you guys are on. You might want to move closer, I don't know if that helps any.
Sure, I'll just sit right up here.
Sure.
So I'm Captain Paul Kinsler from the County Sheriff's. Sheriff Anderson could make it tonight, so I'm here to answer, hopefully answer all your questions. And if I don't know, I'll be for that tomorrow. So I know you have some questions in regards to animal control. Is that correct?
Well, I think there's a couple of questions and concerns, I think.
Okay.
And we have, obviously, the contract hasn't been approved, but we're waiting for you to come and
Sure.
talk to us about it.
So I'll talk in regards to animal control. I know that it's one of the items that came up. So we started a regional animal control as of July 1st. The towns that are on it right now, or I always get this wrong because there's so many towns that want to come in. So it's Wyndham, Putney, Westminster, and Newfane. And we've had conversations with Townsend, Jamaica, so forth and so on, that will also want to get involved with the regional animal control. At this point, we have an animal control officer with a 4 degree in animal science. She's a veterinary tech down at VCA in Brattleboro. She currently works as the animal control officer over in Hinsdale, so she has a lot of experience. Currently, we're at about 2 days a week with her, sharing between all those towns. So when something comes in, if it's a barking dog or something not as threatening or high up on the list, of course, she addresses that on her days that she works. All right, so if you do have any animal problem, she's available on call, and she can address your issue either by phone or she'll come out. She has a car dedicated to her. So that's basically, still it's an infant stage right now. Like I say, we're only doing about 10 hours a week, maybe 12 hours a week. It's something that maybe you want to get in discussion with. I know Mark has a meeting every month, either by Zoom or whoever he does it, where he gets everybody together and they discuss. His opinion that since Grafton is such a smaller town, maybe about a 10% he feels the budget that you'd have to kick in to. It's not a fee for service, it's actually a budget that you'd have to give to put into that, really the pool, so actually you can service your town. Okay. So any other questions? I know Mark's got the contracts and so forth that he's developing. So we can answer that more for you. I think you also had some questions in regards to ticket revenue or?
We do. John, you want
Okay.
I have one concern, and that is the stop sign that comes in from Townsend, and it's right here by the tavern. 2 weeks ago, I looked down and the sheriff was back at the library, looking east, covering Chester Hill. I came up through, and from the time that I went by your patrol car till I got to here, 3 cars went through that stop sign. So I stopped and I sat there. And in the next 10 cars, 8 of them never stopped. So,
Where was he parked? Was he parked down there?
back down there, he
Did
was
he have
facing
to
that
like
way.
this?
He was facing that way,
Okay.
so he couldn't see him. But I don't know, maybe we don't need a stop sign there, because you, just tonight, I sat out there at 5:30, in the first 15 minutes, 10 cars come, 7 or 8 never stopped. You went by with your rig and went out that way and then come back. Luckily, you stopped when I was watching.
I came back out.
Yeah, you can. But I just don't understand why there's no violations been written for that stop sign. I mean, you can park up this way and see them, and just because you have a marked car, I don't think that'll make much difference, but it's a,
And maybe Sergeant Lakin can answer that. He's here pretty much 90% of the time, so.
Well, with a lot of the hours that we have are limited hours, primarily, I personally take a lot of complaints in regards to the speed violations on Chester Road, obviously in front of the museum with the kids, having their summer camp, and just, well, primarily Townsend Road. I mean, some focus could be made on the stop sign if that came directly. I believe at one time it had been, then COVID kind of took off and it kind of probably got lost in the shuffle then, but if that's the town's wish, by all means, go right to Bill. Bill's got my number. I can definitely make sure Captain Cemetery gets that for anybody coming out here on patrol, if that's where the focus wants to be on that stop sign.
I guess that's my focus, and I would think it'd be others' focus, but, I just think it's a major place where there is violations, and instead of being down by the library all the time, let's
A
take.
few times that I focus on it, I usually go up here in this area, looking down, and
Yeah,
make no excuse of them, it takes somebody to actually violate. I haven't actually maybe witnessed 1 or 2 in my time, but primarily I'm focused with the handheld radar, the known speed spots.
right. Well, I'd like to see less patrol of Middletown, Hinkley Brook, Middletown Cemetery like that, and more focused on that stop sign.
We certainly can adjust that. I mean, just looking at the stats from over the past year, it looks like 90% of the tickets have been for speed. So if you want us to concentrate on this, we're absolutely happy to do
The
that.
majority of complaints that we receive are in regards to speed, so I would say, not as an excuse, but that's why you're seeing probably what you're seeing.
I know 3, 4, 5 years ago, you did concentrate on that, and cut it right out.
What you're doing now, as I said, get forward to Bill, and we'll shuffle it through, and you'll see in the stars reports results of that.
Do we need to have somebody come in and paint the line where it says
No,
stop?
I think that you're valid. I would have to review the ordinance, but one thing I would recommend that Grafton does is adopt the stop signs, so we can write under local ordinance for the town. Translation, instead of the violations going to the state of Vermont, they would come back to the town, similar to your speed violations. And I don't pose that as a pitch to get the town rich on violations, but you are contracting us to be here, so the monies that we write should go back ultimately to the town of Grafton.
So what do we have to do? I just assumed that everything
It's
came back.
similar, you have to review Title 23, 1008, and it's pretty much just like when you adopt your local highways under 1007, there has to be notice given to the public, you actually come up with the actual signs that you want to have adopted, give notice to the public and follow the protocol that the board needs to do so. Obviously you could talk to cities, leagues and towns for legal advice on it, but it's not hard. I know Westminster's done it, Putney has done it. I believe even Wyndham has adopted some of their stop signs. It's more of a time issue than anything. It doesn't require the town to be the ones that have to replace the signs or, necessarily, or no financial burden, I guess, associated with it.
Wait, Bill?
What was the title?
1008, Title 23, 1008.
23, that's
We only have 2 stop signs, right?
Yeah.
I think. In the whole town.
Be a short document.
To the county.
Yeah, there was a stop sign on 35,
Oh, that's
coming
right.
on to 121, either going over the Cambridgeport
Yeah, you're right,
Bridge
that's true, too.
or into the village. They whip around that stop sign, and if I'm coming off of Parker Hill, there's a stop sign through there. They take the whole bridge when they come through it, so, and there's been accidents there.
Sure.
It's-
Sure, we definitely should focus on
Yeah.
stop signs.
And there's a yield sign too, and a lot of people don't know where they're yielding. You're supposed to yield to the people coming onto the bridge to go left or right.
So similar to the speed violations, which like a stop sign is understate is 42 FYY, which is pretty much a $162 violation. There is a $47 surcharge mixed into that. So in theory, if you subtract the 47 from the 162, approximately 80% of that should go back to the town. Similar to speed violations, depending on what the waiver amount is, or depending on how fast they are going. Under 1008.
Well, I know it cost us about $4,500 a year, and we got back $1,900 last year. Nothing.
Well, all I can say is we have to write understate if there is no local ordinance adopted for that stop sign, because if we go to traffic court and the judge challenges it, or they're gonna look at it, that's it, we lost automatically. I would much write it under the proper ordinance. I'm not saying that it's not possible for Grafton to get the local ordinance, it's just a process to go through, it can be done. And I think the majority of the violations that you're seeing in terms of those checks from the judicial bureau are speed violations.
It takes about 30 days. There's studies out there, and this has been developed over 30 years. It takes about 30 days to get a handle on something like this. 30 days to get back out of control again. So
Or longer with the way the state's running right now.
I mean, so if we're out here for about a month, you're gonna see people knowing that we're out here and they'll be stopping. Okay, so it's gonna take a little bit to get it under control. If we're out here, it gets around, you get a ticket, it gets around the visibility, so, by hitting these stop areas here, we should have it under control in weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I like the fact that you're here. Your visibility means a lot to me, and I think to the folks in Grafton. Are there any areas here in Grafton or any crimes that are floating up this way that we need to be aware of?
Well, again, the catalytic converter thefts, those are everywhere, and those are crimes of opportunity, right? I mean, if you're driving by and they see a car and it's not well lit, or it could be in the middle of the day, right? It only takes 30 to 45 seconds to pop off one of those converters with a reciprocating saw. It's pretty much everywhere. There's been arrests made. I can tell you right now, the FBI is involved in Vermont, interstate, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, because the material that's in the catalytic converters is being shipped overseas. So, so now it's a federal effort now to find out, you know, these rings that are going on right now. Because when they're taking them off, they're selling them to somebody, right? And we're not knowing who they're selling them to, because they're keeping it quiet. Usually it's out of state, so it's close to the area. You're seeing it more like in Bellas Falls, you're seeing it in Westminster, you're seeing it in Brattleboro like crazy, right? Like it's a prime opportunity. Someone's driving by and they see a vehicle and it's got a big catalytic converter on it. You know, it doesn't take very long. Usually they work in twos. Someone will drop them off. It's late at night, especially the ones up in Westminster. Trucking company, I mentioned Patriot. I think they sell freight liners over there. Yeah, they took 4 off in a matter of minutes there, and each of them was $4,000. Well, not actually $6,000 a piece. So, and then we ended up IDing the person doing that, because the person that did it needed it fixed right away. So he went locally and tried selling them. And the person that he was selling them to actually took a picture of him and the catalytic converters and the car. So we can arrest him. But the other people that are doing this, you know, it's a group effort with them. They might be they're shipping them down to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, wherever they can go. And they get, you know, quick money for them.
Yeah, my
So-
brother's company got hit
Yeah.
twice.
So it's very, very, I mean, it's very hard, not unless you're staking out a place they know what you're looking at, but like, I mean, there's so many vehicles around, and they can do it anywhere. right? They can just drive along and grab one, go to the next town, grab another, and they've been doing that too, so. Just be vigilant, I mean, try to keep a light on in your driveway, light on in your house, keep your cars locked, but,
Yeah, it's
you know, I know they take them underneath, but sometimes they'll go inside if they see something too, it's a crime of, like I say, opportunity. Pocketbook, anything like that, they'll take that too. So, and then we've had situations where they took the cat and they also took something else in the front seat, so, you know, it's what it is now, you know, it's tough. So if they're going out 2, 3 in the morning and driving around, they know police presence is not there. And like I say, it takes them a minute to take it off and leave the scene.
Is that quick? Huh?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. Have to get those Makita saws and you probably know.
If they're doing it that fast, we need some mechanics.
They get underneath and they zip those things right off.
That's all, I mean, yeah.
They're inside.
If you have a garage, like I said, keep your car inside. But they haven't been up this area. I mean, I don't think you've had.
Three, yeah.
You've had a couple, right? Okay. I mean, not as prevalent as some of the other areas, let's put it that way. So they're driving around and some of the stops that we're making up here, even though we're not writing tickets, might be investigative stops. Right? So if you're, you know, if you see something, maybe a warning, it might be a vehicle that we're looking for, or a suspect that, you know, looked like a person in the car, or whatever, so.
When I came down the road for this meeting, there's a pickup truck rusted out, sitting up on, which was, opposite the trading property.
On 121?
Not off my road.
Oh, okay.
And it's parked on the grass that's grown up. I don't know how long it's been there, but I saw it when I came
What
down,
color was it?
white,
White pickup.
and it doesn't have Vermont plates.
Somebody in it?
No,
Oh, just open?
I'm assuming it's an, I didn't go look.
And, you know, if you see something, report it. If you see suspicious vehicle in the area, you know, get to call or state police and get a plate if you can. Very important.
Yes, Suzanne?
Kevin, I think we contract, the town of Grafton contracts for 8 hours per month. You have the stats there, you could correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe so, yeah.
And I think in the last one we signed, it was the 3-hour month. I'm just wondering how we can keep better track or work with you to make sure we're getting the full value of our contract.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you know, give the sheriff a call and speak to him in regards to any concerns or problems that come up. We're happy to address them. Especially if that start coming up this way more and, you know, specific areas being controlled, you know, we can break up the hours and so forth and get some people. But we also have governor's highway safety, which you probably, Mark, explain that to you, which is actually a state grant, federal grant. And we have someone who actually is a coordinator for Southern Vermont that works for us, Sergeant Chris Norton, who does government highway safety. He doesn't fly your budget, but we can send him up here in problem areas, and he gets paid under that grant. So it wouldn't cost him the cost to you. So I'll be happy to send him up here and do some spots, like on those stop signs or wherever else you need looked at. We'd be happy to come up here. It won't come up here.
Well, yeah, the contract is for 8 hours
You know,
per month. And it says the office agrees on input of the select board, the number of hours per month will be adjusted to the specially identified needs of the town. So as you say, if we need to have more, we could ask you to go 9 hours, yes, or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Because there was another issue. So we have that flexibility under the contract.
Right.
Obviously, it will cost us money, but we have that.
Right, of course. And for, like I said, governor's highway safety comes up here, Chris comes up here, he can just do that for one touch of budget at all.
Right.
We can sit up here, you know, 1 days a week to do some.
Especially with that, it's gonna be communication. I was running radar on the way up Main Street here over by the bridge and, Chris down on Chuck Road here came up to me and told me about loud truck they had going through, but it was 5:30 in the morning, been going up every day, waking up his household every morning. I immediately came out here at 5:30 the next day, and I believe I didn't get that subject. I mean, we can get any names on who it was, but just him simply coming up to one of us and saying, this is the issue, and then relay it back to my captain or to whoever is doing the patrol. So just to reinforce communication is key. If you have residents coming to you with issues on certain times, certain days, we will adjust to that.
That's a great point, Robert. We have in our citizens, they're not clear on what the sheriff's response time or expectation is when they call the sheriff's office. Can you clarify that for us?
We're not the 911 responder. We have regular schedules already put in place with our patrol deputies, so they're kind of hedged in, but like what the captain's referring to is like myself, as a person that's dedicated grants, we have that flexibility to move around. I'm not saying that even our primary patrol was actually scheduled in Athens that morning, couldn't switch them out and come up here to Grafton and then go to Athens. So there is some flexibility. I mean, but we need to know about the problem and then see if we can adjust to it.
They should just call the sheriff's office, make that request directly.
Yep, just go through dispatch, and well, I would request a phone call back, just so that there's some communication of exactly, so it doesn't get lost in the communication between dispatch. And if you have a certain resident who's a complainant, we can obviously follow up with that particular resident to adjust what they're saying, so now they know that you are in fact telling the truth and are listening to their needs.
Thank you.
You can certainly shoot us an email. I mean, I know Dr. Bill has had an email, so, we have to make sure we get it.
Are you still short-staffed and underfunded with this new COVID? Did you guys are recipient of any of this new money to help the department?
We had money coming in with COVID, that stopped, and that was just to cover, basically, everything stopped last year. We used that money to, really keep it in spending, since we're in that contract. This year, we are full staffed. We're actually quite a number of applicants that have come to us. So, I think we're maybe short one, and that'll probably be filled next month. And that's it. Otherwise, like Brattleboro called us, Bells Falls called us, Springfield called us to help fill in with their short staff up there. And of course, we really can't do it. We won't pull away from our town. So we have plenty of staff, maybe. But, we're full staff now, and for full timers, I should say, and a few part timers. So we really could pull someone up and saying that they're taking it from our towns. But we're going to be lucky departments to have full staff.
Tim?
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the animal control part, as to what you wouldn't cover if we were to contract?
Well, if someone called on a Sunday night and said there's a barking dog, we're gonna take that information, and who it is, and actually would follow up on that.
So like dog bite, or if somebody
Dog bite,
finds a stray dog and
Yeah.
they got it in their home, you
Yeah.
would come in.
We could take the dog and bring it down to Wyndham County. We have the combination, I think it's a combination of key. She has it.
And so you got, so you communicate with, the health officer if there's a dog, right?
Of course. Mhm.
Non-licensed dogs, or do you?
We can do that.
Do you do any dog census? Or is that left up to the town?
That's left up to the town. I know Ashley's working with, I think, I don't think the figure's right. I think Putney had 28 dogs that were unlicensed, and West Windsor had 128 dogs. So she's working on that right now.
Okay.
She's developing a form. Actually, she has the form from New Hampshire, and she's editing that out so that we can apply it to here. And she's working with the towns to get the dogs licensed within revenue to the county folks.
And so if they have not licensed, do you ticket them like we were considering with our ticketing process to ticket them? So
Yeah, she would do that.
you can do that.
Yeah, so you're right. So you get together with her and develop the form. And where you go, so if you have it in the books now, it's a $5 fee or a $25 fee or a late fee, you can incorporate all that on there. That's all the process of being developed right now in the towns. So hopefully, it's something.
And do you have any idea what it would cost us to contract?
You know, 10%, Mark had mentioned it.
10% of our contract?
I'm sorry,
10% of our contract?
10% of the ACO contract, the whole contract, figures should just be the 10% just due to the population. So I didn't have the figure on that, but that's something you want to get together.
I think Mark said around 2,000
Okay.
Per year.
per year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that would give you, you know, Ashley, whatever call you would have, she would respond. She's very, very knowledgeable. We're looking to get her, so,
So we have your contract here, so that would be an additional contract.
yes.
It's not something we add to here, it's a contract with her or with,
With the sheriff's office, but
Right, yeah.
specifically the ACO contract, we divide her, right, so we divide her funds, just separate, separate accounts, is what we say, so it'll come out there. And she does STARS reports also, so the STARS reports, and town activity reports that you can review. She has her own, so she can see what she's exactly doing or what she addressed that point.
So the more towns that join, the less it is to
Right.
launch.
Yeah, it's the town, right? More people that get in on it, and there's a lot of towns, I mean, I know state police just calls us, they just call us, no matter what town it is, they'll call us and say, then you're on patrol out there, and we're like, we don't have a contract with that town. I'm like, well, I thought it was just regional, you know, and I says, well, eventually it's gonna get to that point. But-
And so we would still have to contract with an animal, shelter like we do now. So it's not incorporated in it, so we belong to the Wyndham Humane Society.
Right, so that's-
3 years, we still would continue that,
So we'll continue that.
and then you would just take them to
Take care,
whoever.
right.
Okay.
And that's what we like, affiliation, she has affiliation with them.
And there's no start or finish for the contract, it's whenever you decide to sign up, and it's on your basis.
Correct.
So there's no like,
Correct.
you got till July 1st.
No,
Okay.
and that's what I'm saying, we got a lot more, there's, I think, 4 towns that want to get in on it, or at least get more information about it, maybe start with the town. They've just been seeing that so many complaints are coming in, and they're kind of strapped to do, and so forth.
I said, are you just by word of mouth? I mean, I hadn't ever heard of this happening until I talked to Lisa.
Yeah, so look, in July 1st, we started it. And that's when we-
So
so yeah, it's in the infant stage, you can say right now, we're still developing our policies, procedures,
Okay,
so forth. So it's right there, but she's, you know, she comes in Tuesday and she's jumping from town to town to town. And taking care of all the issues.
anything else? Well, we need, I think we need to have some kind of a motion to adopt the contract. It was due July 1, obviously.
That and who's going to sign it?
Yeah, I was gonna say. So somebody want to make a motion to accept the contract as presented by the Wyndham County Sheriff's Office? So, who had the,
Well, split it up.
I don't care.
One of us will second it.
Okay. And the motion is to include, the town of Grafton, so that Bill would sign for the town. Any further discussion on that?
So that does not include the program with the dog?
No, that would be something separate. So, if there's any discussion on the contract, if not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I'll give this to Bill later, and then Bill, or he will do it now, and then he'll sign that. Now, do you want anything on the dogs, or do you want to wait for budgetary?
I probably want to wait a little bit, and talk a little bit more about it,
Okay.
maybe wait until we budget for it.
Is there any information that we need to get from you on the program, other than what you described today?
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a phone call with Mark, we'll definitely talk to you about, everything about it. I mean, I basically just know on the surface what's going on, and he's got all the fine print, I think he would like to discuss with you.
Okay.
And be happy to set up a, Zoom meeting with you.
Well, since we're involved with this disastrous flood here, so I'll get a hold of Bill and maybe Tim, and then at some point, get some more information on it, and certainly what the costs, however they want to handle it. Okay, so thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dave. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so highway report, so the first item on that is the authority to act for the town highway foreman and the town administrator. Do you want to talk about that, Danny?
Go put that on there.
Well, it's on there because we thought maybe you wanted to have it on there.
Authority to act for town highway. So
Yeah, on highway, and,
it's more or less just the permission which we did the other night for
Yeah, and
purchasing and
I limited it to, decisions and purchase materials, to make decisions and purchase materials based solely on and for use in the response to the damages and recovery efforts due to the July 30th through August 2nd, 2021 storms and flooding. So it's just for that purpose.
which was pretty much covered. Emergency meeting, I thought.
yeah, we talked about it, but it was never signed.
Oh, okay.
So if you still want to do this, then we have it here.
Well, yeah, it's kind of nice to have the authority.
Well,
I mean, I've been buying
I
material.
would think so, right? John, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Well, I don't know if it falls under this or not, but the select board should give Bill and myself and Michelle authority for what we've been doing for the last 3 days. Or permission to do.
What is that?
Well, what we've been doing is going over all the roads that were hit by the rain and wind and assessing the damage and reporting it back and taking pictures and so forth. And then getting it set up so that when this is declared a disaster, we can meet with FEMA and go over it with them.
I move that we grant the authorities just described by John with gratitude.
Somebody want to second this?
Second.
Bill, do we need, is there a special declaration that we need to sign, or is,
I don't think the governor has declared yet.
but I mean, do we need to do any other than make a motion and agree to it? There's nothing we have to sign like we do here.
No. No. It might be even covered under Danny's authority, but John wanted to make sure that people understood
Right.
who's doing the work in that. And John and Michelle especially did all the paperwork during their meeting, and they know how to handle it, and they're great help to Kim so that she can keep track of those expenses, and a great help to Danny to make sure that the right paperwork is done.
For members of the board who were not here during any of the floods, there's a tremendous amount of paperwork, and there's a amount of work that has to get done. And so it has to be presented in a special way to FEMA or to the state, so it's not something you just do, it's something that requires a lot of time and effort. And Michelle was very good doing that during Irene, I believe. And we have all the procedures, so I think we should just do it.
Yeah, you have to present your case to V-Trans and to FEMA in order to get a lot of this money back, or for them to say, yeah, you got damage. We may think there is, but they may not, and so you're gonna be present and, stand up and say that, yeah, we think there is, and so.
So, yeah, what they've been doing, we've been doing is all the standard stuff to get any reimbursement, pictures, estimating for, quantities, of material. Because a lot of our stuff, our big quantities, we've already put out, so they're gonna go by pictures and documentation of what we've done.
Lucky.
If you don't have that, you don't get no reimbursement.
Which we have done.
Which is done. And the state is supposed to be here tomorrow to meet with us and hopefully give us more information. I know it's been submitted to go forward to FEMA, but it hasn't happened yet because it's $1 million threshold, Buckley alone hit that, so.
No, we're pretty close to that ourselves, I think.
If they accept everything.
Yeah.
There's a few things that need to be clarified on class 4 roads and stuff, so. there was a lot of changes to standards and stuff after Irene, because there was a lot of things that you had to fight for to get. So the new contracts that you guys sign every year for the road standards and Act 64, in mine, it's all listed right in there, tells you what we have to do to get the grant money and stuff, and I think the state's on the hook to do what we've been doing, and that's including class 4. There's a lot of damage on the class 4 side, Lead Road, Anderson Road, and Doug Road, we haven't looked
Yeah,
at
I
wholly
think
yet.
fixes could be.
So, there's a lot of money to go there yet, possibly a box culvert on Ledge Road. So,
So we need a motion for this, I assume. Okay, so the weeks, I think you made a motion. I'm fine. So if there's no further discussion, if you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, the other one we have on the topic is this declaration of authority. I think we already approved this, I do believe, at the emergency meeting.
I'm sorry?
The declaration, I think we approved this at the emergency meeting. The declaration of authority.
Yeah, you just did it a few minutes ago.
Okay, but that's the same thing as this.
yeah, we never signed.
Okay, now we gotta sign it. Okay, so I'll start down there and sign it, and then we can give it to it. Do we have any other discussion on the topic of authority or whatever? If not, you want to address Route 21 and Basin? Okay.
So we did some of this the other night, was about, Taylor excavating struck line, that was discussed the other night for 121 or leaving the flood, so. And for basins, I have not heard from them on the scheduling. It was kind of left up in the air a week before this flood happened. I do know that they were saying that a lot of people were trying to hire them and they weren't doing any flood work because they have so much work. So I think they're still planning on doing the project.
But can you do?
As long as, the software has started crushing, so I think the material will be there. Some of the trucks that are hauling right now, we're gonna have to do the whole slips in the end because we were trucking out of the stockpile I had for the project. So that'll be kind of like figuring out how much got used for the flood and what's left in the end, but I'm still planning on trying to do it. A lot of the repairs on the road, as long as we can have contractors here to do them for the flood stuff, it makes it a lot cleaner for the, FEMA and all that. The town is still gonna be doing some of it, but we still got a lot of work to do on that project with culverts and different things, so. I'm gonna try to focus on doing that 1.1 stuff.
So we can always put that on the, if things change, then our next meeting in middle of August, we can always.
Yeah, we have to talk to basins too, because we've already awarded it, so their intent is to do it.
And we do have the money from the state.
Right.
Is there any other questions?
Yes, but John, I think you had a question, you go first. Did you have a question? I'll go ahead. Danny, did I just hear you say that there will be contractors doing the flood work?
Yes, which we have now.
And so how do we pay for that?
Yes.
Yeah, so
So
how does
it's a
that?
reimbursement.
I do not understand the mechanics of that and whether.
Their bill is just as if it was just regular work done for us, we're paying, and then we go after FEMA and the state for reimbursement.
Okay,
We're at matching, the 12% that we have to come up with, which more than likely will be in-kind services and stuff that we're doing already. They got grader, you don't have many graders out there, so there'd be certain parts of town to be doing when we're not working on the other projects.
so do we have the money to do that, to pay these bills as they come in from our local contractors?
Comes under the clerk treasurer.
Perfect, thank you, Kim.
Sheet line.
I know. Okay, because we got $1 million, it's over.
Danny, when will we first see the first, timesheets from the contractors?
I think we're gonna just run them as with accounts payable, so it would be next week?
This weekend,
This weekend.
yeah, yes.
So
Yeah, because that's when the warrants go out again.
So
a lot of the contractors, I guess, should be submitting them for Friday.
By Friday, yeah, Friday or.
It's off the week.
but I just asked because we want to start, separating everything from them onto a spreadsheet so that we know.
I'm trying this time to have the contractors, when they bill, do most of our paperwork, because it was such confusing. I've talked to them some. I might be going to a couple of their offices just to tell them how I want it, because we have a form, I don't have it with me, that lists, you know, the trucks, all the equipment, and then it says location, so they have to fill that out. And I want each of their invoice to be filled per road, you know, they can put, if they have 3 pieces of equipment on Hinkley Brook, they can, no, that's.
Just not the one?
No,
Okay.
they can put it all on one bill as long as it's all for Hinkley Brook, but I don't want an invoice that has 2 pieces for Hinkley Brook, one for Middletown, and another one from there, because then we gotta make copies of every one of them and keep it, you know, separated out. So I want, and a couple of them I'm thinking it's a lot, but I don't think it's gonna be that hard for them to do it. But if they do that step, it's gonna minimize what we're doing here. And we don't have a lot of contractors. You know, we got a handful of contractors. St. Pierre's Trucking, they're just bringing and delivering. So that, they're not gonna break it out. We have to do that. They're not gonna do that for us. But, you know, we have, P&L Trucking that's working for us, Taylor Excavating, Jamie Gregory, Russell Record,
Say Pierre, yeah.
You had
St. Pierre, oh, no, Wilson one. So they're the ones that showed up. So, they'd be the ones that I'll try to keep, you know, if we hire somebody on, as we get down and narrowing things down, the last one hired are the first one that goes in my mind. The first ones that came would be the last ones to leave. It's gonna, we fixed a lot, you know, like out the Townsend Road, a lot of that is all been filled. Jamie's doing some rack work on the riverbanks. There's, Hinkley Brook, all the fills up through there now, so it's backed up, now it's all the side ditch stuff, and then we put gravel on at the end. So now it's gonna slow down and take time. All the tedious work is gonna start. You know, you got spots along the road that only take 3-4 yards. But, you know, it's a matter of getting the equipment there, doing that spot, taking out the wood or whatever around the culverts and putting it back. So, getting all the material there, we've done that pretty much. Kidder Hill is back open. We had that done in 2 days so that you could get in and out. We're ready to shape it up and start doing all ditch work on most of these. A lot of ditch washes we started today, Mike and David did. I don't know how long we're gonna have, you know, some of these contractors gotta go back and do some of their stuff. Trucks, you know, some days I'll have maybe 8 or 9, other days I might only have a couple. So,
You can only do what you can do.
yeah. So,
If there's no other discussion, we have the Daisy Turner sign, Bob Donald.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'm a member of the board of directors, and I choose to recuse myself in this discussion.
Perfect. But you don't have to leave.
Yes.
No, I just.
I'll be brief, I mean, much you want. I'm here actually on behalf of both Wyndham and the Preservation Trust of Vermont, which did the lion's share of the work up at the Daisy Turner site. By the way, the big celebration on 28th of August, I'll invite you. I won't be here. So there've been some interpretive signs prepared, similar in format to the ones at the church and market and in Barrett House. And one of them, I'll just read from some material. 3 interpretive signs. One will be in Birchdale Camp where the new road to Birchdale Camp joins Turner Hill Road. Well away from the traveled area of Turner Hill Road. Active 50 requires a sign be placed in disturbed soil, so the planned placement is on the edge of the fill for Turner Hill Road in front of the cellar hole. I can't say I really know what that is, but. So since it is town right of way, on behalf of the foundation and the Preservation Trust, I'm asking for permission to place one of these interpretive signs up there. And again, they're the same format as you've seen elsewhere down. So, not exactly a highly traveled part of town, but, that's the end of the town road nonetheless.
Sure, we have in our policy about putting stuff in the right of way, is this gonna be is this an issue?
I asked him to bring, okay, let me just ask, Bob, when you go up there, it looked like you guys had placed some flags or something where the driveway takes off and turn the hill, but up just the upper part of that, and you had some flags in the weeds there. That's where you're gonna put it?
Yes. Double hole for you.
Okay, that is, it is along our right of way, but I think it's set back that it's not in the right of way, correct?
It's on the back side of the ditch.
Okay.
What I saw,
Yeah.
but
So
The main
It's
purpose,
not an issue.
it's
my
not,
main purpose for being here is just to make sure that both parties comply with anything required by this way.
No, but we do have a rule about putting stuff in the right of way, so that's why I figured it out.
I believe, and Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that you're out of the right of way where you're going to put it. Because that right of way is narrow anyway, going all the way up there. It's not a 50-foot right of way.
No. So you're looking for a motion? Somebody want to make a motion to allow the Lunar Foundation and the David Kelly group to put their sign in? I guess, I don't know if it's right away, but whatever it's called.
So moved.
Second, John? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one recusal of John, you have to put that in the minutes as a recusal. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, I hope it's a success. Do we have anything else, other than that, Shane, if you need to talk, anybody have anything you want to talk about before we move on? Yes?
Just really quickly, a lot of those culverts that were damaged, we're hoping that they'll do mitigation this time, unlike Irene, and that, even though, the culvert didn't go down the road, except for the one over on Leslie, we're hoping that we can replace more of them, including the one we have an application in to replace right now, and that's the culvert right, usually, but the first one after the one we replaced last year. And, it really needs, I mean, this flood showed why it needs to be replaced, so. And so we're gonna try to do that, with them, and I've already mentioned it several times in all our paperwork that we really want to do mitigation this summer.
Well, we have to wait for FEMA, right? Is that FEMA?
Yeah, and that would also be, the culvert at Dick DeRoche's that houses in fits every time it rains really hard.
Right.
That one needs to replace. The one at, Nancy and Hardy Merrill's, that's really bad culvert. And then if we do, Ledge Road where it currently sits instead of moving it, and I've already mentioned that V-Trans maybe move that road, so we avoid the creek altogether. If we do that, there's one there that it's a huge culvert, and it was just completely, I don't know where the water came from, just went right over the top of it. So it's all those things that we'd like to do, but don't know that we're gonna be able to do the mitigation. So both those culverts, the one that we asked, and we have an application for the replace, probably next year, and the one above it in the corner there, both of those hopefully get replaced, and that one has a hole in it. So we're hoping that we can get them to say, yeah, I think it's enough to be replaced. We just, and that's the type of thing you have to follow up on with the.
Anything else at the highway? Kim, do you have anything on corporate treasurer other than,
First tax installment payment is due Monday, August 16th. The next warrant coming up, and I think, Nathaniel Noyce is gonna be on the warrant as in payroll. He's not a contractor.
right.
Right, so if you see that when you're signing the warrants, that's who that new person is that you guys see. And he's filled out all the correct paperwork and given it to Michelle, so. It's actually driving one of the town bus, so that's why we got him as an employee. I did a little bit of, calling today to our bank that we bank with, the community bank. And I talked to Hope, and that's who I went through when we got our loan for the town garage. Asked her about a line of credit, if we should need one, and for how much. So what she needs from the board, is a dollar amount. What would we like for a line of credit? And the way it works is we request a line of credit. The money is set aside. It's a very easy process, she said, for, the application. As long as you guys set the amount, you designate someone to sign the note. And she'll send me all the work, I send it back to her. And the money will sit there in a reserve for us, and we only pay interest on the amount we draw for the days that we draw. The note is good for up to a year. No payment is due to the, maturity of the note. And at that time, hopefully, we have been declared and we will be approved by FEMA. And when FEMA reimburses them, that's when we pay off the note and the interest. Let's see, a lot of times it takes longer than a year for FEMA to finalize everything. So what they would do is have to just extend the note, so they would renew it.
So how much are you looking for?
That I'm leaving up to the experts, being John, Bill, Danny, whatever, they have, estimate for an amount.
I think me and Danny and Bill are in about the same 600,000 to start with.
You mean, let it go to 600,000?
Yeah.
That may go up as we go on.
Well, that's why we should request, because if you request it, can you up it? Probably not.
I don't see why we can't, that's one of the questions I can ask Hope, when I get back to her tomorrow, or if you want longer to think about it, but it's actually okay.
I think during Irene,
With what we have,
I think during Irene, we started off with a small amount, we had to change it. I'm pretty sure, you know, we
It was only because we needed some money right away, and we could get $1 million right away. And then we got $1.9 million, no, basically another $2 million, which we never used. So we used the $1 million, and then we had to pay back pretty quickly.
But I mean, just because you're asking for 600 doesn't mean you can't go back later on if you need more to change it.
Kevin?
Kim, what's the interest?
she could not like give that to me, obviously, she said it's fairly low right now. But it's above her authority at 600,000, so she wasn't able, she'd have to find out from her higher ups what the interest rate would be for us. But she said it would be low.
Is it a floating interest or is it interest, I mean, does it change
Like, is it a
monthly?
fixed or is it a
Yeah.
variable? I'm not really sure how she does it. But either way, I'm gonna need it.
No, I
Yeah, I'll find out like what the percentage is once we determine what I'll ask.
Right.
Right now, she gets our audits every year anyways, an electronic copy, because we have to have one with them. So I'm always sending her one updated, they just have to take a look at that. The paperwork is minimal, she said, and it's just, giving someone signing authority, and then the amount you want. And then it takes approximately 2 weeks, she said. She could rush it if you need to have it sooner, but it's approximately 2 weeks, which
So we should do something at this meeting, because if we don't,
then you're gonna wait till your next meeting.
then that's a month away. So, I mean, we should pick a number. Yeah, Kathy?
And Kim, are we involved with other banks?
Not really, we pretty much have all of our accounts with Community Bank. The only other bank I deal with is People's United, but that's more for the trust account, the trustee of public funds, and it's a small amount.
Did I read that the community bank is gonna be bought? I thought I read something that they're gonna merge with somebody.
I don't remember.
I don't remember who it was.
River Valley just merged with another bank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. This is,
No, I hadn't heard.
Suzanne?
Kim, couple things. Since we're dealing mainly with local contractors who we want to pay as quickly as possible, what would our normal payment schedule be on a monthly basis? And does that give us the 2 weeks of time to get this line of credit, these funds in the bank to pay our bills?
We could, I mean, we've got enough right now that we could run for a while.
Okay,
Because like I said, all of our accounts, all of our money markets and everything are within the one bank. And we do have the general fund, which has all of our reserves in that one bank, which has about 600 in it now.
so we're not in a cash crisis, we could pay our bills and
We could
replenish
pay,
it
yeah,
with a line of credit as needed.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then with respect to the interest, does FEMA cover the interest payments? I didn't.
Bill
think they
doesn't
would.
think so.
No.
I asked the bank, she didn't know, and I went to Bill, and I was hoping that maybe, they'll cover the interest, but they don't, it's up to them now.
So I believe, as Danny pointed out earlier, that our ultimate commitment, will be 12.5% of whatever FEMA declares as the.
Well, that might change. That could change. If there's federal involvement, then mitigation could be half of that, I think, 7.5%.
Is it, well, because I thought Steve was 75% and the state's 12.5, and then we're 12.5.
Yeah, but I think it could change, couldn't it, Bill?
We should plan on 12.5.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
but
and
it
that could
could.
be in kind,
The
too.
governor will have to change it if you can.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily owe 75,000 in cash. It can be.
Because it can be in kind, the
Oh,
like,
okay, good.
office work and things like that we keep track of,
Okay,
that can go towards it,
okay, great.
that we pay.
I didn't know that, that's good.
So does somebody want to make a motion? Alan, sorry?
I just wanted to ask Tim, can you get sort of like pre-approved, like for more, like, could you get pre-approved up to $1 million and then ask for it in increments?
In increments,
Can you do that?
yeah,
And,
I mean, yeah.
and the interest is on the increment that you've taken out, not on the million you're approved for?
Right, we can ask for more, sure, I don't, you wanna go 7 or 8, it doesn't mean we're gonna use it, because we're only charged interest on what we draw.
It just seems, going through the process, that might be smart to get a little more than you need, and then if you don't spend it all, you don't have to pay interest on that part.
Especially if it isn't gonna cost us anything.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
John, do you have a thought on how much we should apply for?
I said 600,000. What we have assessed the damage as of now is about $1.1 million. But 500,000 of that is probably 2 box culverts, which are not gonna probably happen for quite a while. One's on the ledge road, and the other one be up Hinkley Brook. So that's why I don't see any reason to ask for more than 600,000 at this time. And with us having 900,000 on hand and no big expenses, I think we'll be all set.
Kind of, remember the auditor's suggestion that we need to keep some money on hand for a rainy day, it's like,
Well, what is it?
well, rainy month, but I mean, that was exactly the situation we were talking about.
Well, let's pick a number and have a motion so we can move on with this.
Danny, what are you comfortable
I think 600. I mean, if it doesn't cost any more, to go to 800 and,
Well, let's go
with?
ahead.
but we're gonna use our money before we use their money, just so you're not spending interest, but if it's, I mean, last time we got approved for $1 million, so should be breeze for 800.
Well, why don't we go for 800? I mean, it doesn't cost anything until you take it out.
Yeah, we're not gonna get charged unless we draw, so.
So somebody want to make a motion? Don't speak all at once.
I do, so that we get a line of credit for 800,000 and,
At Community Bank.
at community, what else do you need the motion to say, Ken?
Who is going to be the, signer,
Well, who you got, you can't be you.
a designated signer? Yeah, It would be the loan papers is what. it would
The
be.
chair or Bill, either one.
Exactly, I was thinking, yeah, whatever anybody suggests, I was thinking Bill, who's in the office, unless
That's
you want me
fine
to
with me.
shake down one of you guys.
Bill go to jail, not me.
It's gonna take two hits.
I'm fine.
So we're going for 800,000?
So anyway, so the motion is to obtain a credit line of Community Bank for $800,000 with the authority of the town administrator to sign. Okay. And we have a second to that, I think? Do we have? I heard it first, Suzanne.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All righty. Do you have anything else, Kim?
No, I think that's it.
But you should, I think we should look into the dog thing, whether we do it or not, but at least see, because that might be something that we might want to do.
I know, like last night I had to come in the office because we had a dog that was scared from thunder, took off. I called Mike, he wasn't home, which he's probably away, it's summer, so Ronnie and I went down and retrieved the dog, I came in the office, found out what the number was, couldn't get a hold of the owner, brought it to us. I'm like, this is why we need to care of the garden.
Well, the other thing too is, I mean, you don't want, you personally don't want to go to somebody's house because they didn't pay to, let somebody do it with today's environment. you never know
With
what's gonna
authority
happen.
and experience.
Yeah, and they have the experience.
Uniform and a gun.
Okay. The next item is, on the revised, rules of procedure that we added here, to clarify some of the issues that have come up over the course of time. Do you have any, discussion about this, or somebody want to make a motion on the procedure so we can have discussion? Yes, no? We can't have a, if we don't have a motion, we can't talk. We don't have to approve, we can talk about
I'll make a motion to talk about it.
it. Okay. Got it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. Any comments or questions on the procedure?
So I have some concerns about this procedure, and I'm wondering if it would be,
Well, what is it, what part do you have concerns about?
well, I was just gonna say, the procedure puts a lot of boundaries around how we can submit information, not only to select board, but also the public. It's permitted to submit information for a meeting. And it seems, especially the fact that a unanimous vote is required to make an exception, that with this kind of procedure, we are not only limiting ourselves, but also limiting the public we serve. And I think the direction intended here is good, because we've had some discussion about a practice of the select board being that we submit information in advance of the meeting. But I think this goes into, if I may say so, an onerous amount of detail. And I'm just wondering if it bears some more thought. And I would suggest that we delegate and take another shot at writing this rule with the idea of the intent in mind, but also the idea that we don't want to defeat the very purpose we're trying to solve, which is to make our meetings less open rather than more open. And I think it would be great if Bill and maybe the personnel committee, if the select board would consider delegating a new draft of this procedure to Bill and the Personnel Committee. I was just thinking, Kathy, maybe you and I could take this on since we've been working with the LCT and try to get some more, a rule that goes in the direction we want to go in, but not quite at this level.
Well, maybe you can clarify. I don't understand where the objection is. How are we making this less public? I don't see it. Maybe you could explain it to us.
Okay.
Well, to me, anyway.
Well, I know that we have bigger fish to fry in this meeting, namely the storm, the road condition, the funding of the project. It's already almost 7:15. Rather than dive into it at that level of detail, Joe, I'm just wondering if we could take this offline, give it some more thought, and come back to the select board with a proposal.
Okay, I understand your concern, but tell me, what I don't understand is where the objection is. How does it make it less public?
Okay.
That's what I need to understand.
Okay, I'm happy to share that with you then in a level of detail that is wonkish and will take some time, but I think I forward you of that. Okay, so it says, first of all, in public participation, there is no such rule in the VLCT model for the rules of procedure. So this is stepping out of the bounds of what has been our model for the rules of procedure. There is no such level of detail in the VLCT model. And I think that's for a reason.
It's a model, just remember.
It is a model.
It doesn't mean you have to adopt everything. It's a model to use, and obviously, boards can.
Joe, yes, of course, I totally agree with that. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to suggest we give this some more thought beyond its meaning. Any information to be presented must be given to the town administrator no later than noon the Thursday before a regular meeting and 4 hours before a special or emergency meeting. In the statutes that govern agendas, and I'm trusting the public document, there is an at least 48-hour minimum. So moving that date back to Thursday is, I think, putting a boundary that is too soon. Then it says, exceptions may be made to the noon Thursday deadline, provided the information is given to the town administrator 4 hours before a regular meeting, and at that meeting, the select board votes unanimously that to find that the information will not violate the spirit of the open meeting law, and that finding is in the affirmative, vote unanimously to accept the information for that regular meeting. Normally, when there's a quorum, it requires a majority vote. Also, there are some exceptions that require a 2/3 vote. This rule requires a unanimous vote to make an exception. I think that's strict. Also, we know that it is at least arguable that the phrase will not violate the spirit of the open meeting law is disputed. We have, I have put into the record that I sought information from VLCT on this very topic, and the feedback I got that there was no such requirement in the open meeting law for advanced presentation or pre-production of documents before a select board meeting by either the select board or the public. And I think we have to keep in mind that this rule is labeled public participation. we don't want to in any way construe to the people we serve that we are going to limit their participation by requiring a unanimous vote to make an exception if for whatever reason they have a document to bring before us before Thursday, before a Monday select board meeting. Now, these are my views on this topic, but my recommendation is that rather than try to solve this problem tonight, we take this offline with Bill and we work on these concerns until we come back to the select board with something that I think might be more agreeable, but also keeps in the direction of what Joe described to me as the practice of the select board to submit documents in advance.
Does anybody have any other comments? I don't see anything that's how this limits anything, quite frankly. As a matter of fact, if you don't have a rule that to submit information that needs to be on the agenda in a timely manner, then that prohibits the individual resident who might be interested in that particular item. At least they can see and they can come to the meeting. If it's done right before and they don't see the agenda, it might be something they might be interested in. And I would not have a problem if it said, if it was, take the word unanimous out and just let the board decide. I don't have a problem with that. If the board wants to go 2-2 or 4-1, whatever. That's it. So I don't have a problem with that.
I think there is a distinction between the agenda, which definitely has clear guidelines statutorily about what has to be on the agenda in order to give the public full and open access to the meeting and know what topics are going to be discussed at the meeting, and the actual pre-production of documents. According to VLCT, there is no requirement, and I'll just read that again to the select board. Documents absolutely can be distributed at meetings, even if they were not part of the board packet. The documents become part of the public record for that meeting and should be handled accordingly. Now, there is an argument to be made that this rule is based on a faulty premise, but I'm not going there. I'm saying that there is simply a dispute between the information we have from VLCT about this very topic and what appears in this rule. And I'm suggesting we work it through as a smaller sub-team with Bill and come back to the board with a different recommendation.
Can I ask a question of Bill? Bill, how often does the material come to you at the last minute? Is that it strikes me that's the extreme exception, that you tend to get most of the material in advance, or I feel like I see it in advance.
It does, and then I try to get it out to everybody, and not just select, but now that we're doing virtual, I send it to all the people who ask to be in attendance virtually. I don't send it to, for instance, to my Grafton resident list. I could, and then we try to make sure that everybody knows what it is that agenda item is going to discuss. So it doesn't happen. I can't remember it happening that we didn't have the document and before, but it could happen.
I guess my thinking on this is, I sort of support the concept of this because I want to see the material as early as possible. I do not like walking into a meeting and not understanding the issues and then being asked to take action. I like the concept of this because it also sets a clear boundary for the public to know what we expected them to get documents to us. But I agree with Suzanne about unanimous vote. I think that makes it too hard for the exception to come before us and pass.
Well, you can
So-
change that, it just says, let's see, and at that meeting, the select board votes, to find, just take
Right, just take out
unanimous.
unanimously,
And that's not the
make me a
problem.
lot happier.
Then it just, if the select board wants to do it, they do it, if they don't want to do it, then they don't do it. And that's up to the board, and it could be 3-2, it could be 4-1, or whatever the case might be. And that's no, piss down.
I read this, having had an issue a while ago, and unless I misread it, it means I have to be home or someplace, I have to read the agenda on Thursday when it comes out, and I have to comment and get information in to you Thursday so that I can speak to it on Monday. That doesn't give me very much time.
Yeah, but it's still, but now there's an exception. The exception may be made to the new Thursday deadline, provided the information is given to the town administrator 4 hours before a regular meeting. So if you can't do it, you get it, and that's it.
I just think that you want public participation, and then you set this guideline, you're kind of not giving the public very much time to prepare or to digest. If I don't happen to be around Thursday to read it, and I don't get to see it till Sunday, it's like, okay, so I can go to the meeting on Monday, but I can't really comment or can't participate, because, well, I didn't send my data, I didn't
You
send my
can
information.
get it to the administrator 4 hours before.
Right?
And then it requires a vote.
Well, yeah, but that's at the
It requires a
meeting.
vote.
But
And these are gates that people have to pass through in order to provide information to the select board when it is truly unclear that in any way, shape, or form that is required by the open meeting law. The open meeting law and the public records, document record keeping are fundamental to the way the town is governed. And we have a difference of opinion, minimal, a difference of opinion on the application of the open meeting law to this situation. And this is going to be like a bubble under a carpet. If we don't address it now, it's just going to keep popping up. We could invite a member of VLCT. Kathy and I work with a member of VLCT staff on the personnel committee. We could invite someone, we could invite the town attorney, we could invite someone to help us get to the bottom of this understanding, so that as a select board, we can have a common understanding of what's called for by the open meeting. I think this would be extremely helpful to our work together. And this document goes so far as to say the information will not violate the spirit of the open meeting. When requiring a public document at the time of the meeting, we have from our trusted resource is not a violation of that. How can we not, in good conscience, explore this further as a select board before we agree to a rule like this that is self-imposed? It seems to me it needs to be more carefully studied, and I'm happy to work with Bill on this. I'm happy to work with the LCT, with Kathy, with any of you who want to join in, but I don't think we should leave this standing the way it is with just the word unanimously changed, although I do appreciate, Sue, that you would understand that aspect of it.
So I've had the reverse happen during the virtual meeting where it was helpful to have information present for you, especially when you're showing visual images on the computer for everybody to see. I sent some photos and some information in of things that I wanted to talk about in the village park ahead of time, so it could be included in the package and presented for people to see. somebody decided that that was either confrontational or we weren't gonna talk about it. So, because I sent it in ahead of time, it wasn't put on the agenda.
So it wasn't on the agenda, John.
Well, it wasn't put on the agenda, and I sent it early enough, so it could have been included on the agenda, because I sent it Thursday. And so, yeah, I've been told before, all you gotta do is contact Bill if you want something on the agenda, and so that's what I did, and it still didn't get on the agenda, so I have a little problem.
Well, that could be an oversight. I can't imagine, I don't recall that. I mean, generally, I don't remember. I know I personally have not put anything on the agenda unless it was something that required, it was going to be a long meeting and then we postponed it to another meeting, or it was not fully warned, or it wasn't given specifics so the public could come and make their comments. That's how I've done it. I don't remember that, Alan, and if that happened, I apologize for it.
If you do this, I think you might as well not have public comment on your agenda, because you're telling people, you gotta do it Thursday if you wanna speak.
No, you didn't say that.
Why would we open when we have a choice here to look into this further, we are under no time pressure to make this decision. Why would we not consider it more deeply and see if we can come up with something that.
Yes, sorry.
I just have a logistical question. The board is one thing, but the public has to submit it within 4 hours, blah, 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 you vote. Where do you vote? You vote at the meeting?
Yes,
So everybody knows if you say, no, you don't, something, right?
well, if you want something on the agenda, you can go and get Bill
I'm talking about
on Thursday.
documentation. Are you talking about documentation?
Yes, documentation.
Not agenda items?
No, the agenda item has to be on the agenda. The documentation can be given up to 4 hours prior to.
But then, Joe, according to this rule, it has to be voted on as an exception.
Right.
And, I think we have to be clear about what's in this proposed rule, word for word. Why don't we, Kathy, it was your motion to talk about it. I don't know if we're talking about it. What is the harm in giving this until August 16th and taking another look at it? Come on. Do we have to pass this tonight when it's fraud? It is fraud.
Well, that's your opinion. I don't see a problem at all, but that's your opinion.
Are all parties involved in this willing to do this?
I'm willing.
I haven't heard from the 3 people that were going to be involved.
Well, I think just an idea, John. If you
Why
wanted
just-
to be involved, that would be fine.
Does everybody want to do this?
Bill?
I'd be willing to be involved, but I'm not if you want the opinion from all these people, not by the 16th. You need to have meetings and discuss with them. I don't even remember where this particular language comes from. This was prepared months ago, like last summer.
Was it 2000?
The only thing that was changed in this whole thing was that the meetings would happen here.
No, this is a change in our current rules.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
but
this was prepared when we started virtual meetings. The whole thing, was prepared for the virtual meetings.
Right,
That-
but it was never enacted by the
About
board.
about 10 months ago.
Okay.
This is not new. The
It
only
wasn't
thing
created
is
in the
new
last
was
week.
117 Main Street is where our meeting's gonna be.
It was created it was created, whatever code, a year ago, but it was never enacted.
Well, I totally understand Bill's constraint by August 16th. He is doing Herculean work for the town right now with the road emergency. If it's willing to do this, I'm willing to do it on his schedule. I think it would be a very healthy thing for the select board Bill and I obviously have different points of view on this. We're both willing to work on it. It's a matter of timing. We are under no time pressure to create this rule. I think it would be helpful to have one other select board member on the team.
You can't have three people. You
Two
can't have
select-
three select board members
two-
discussing this.
Two
Two, but
select
not
board
three.
members.
Two.
Bill and I, according to John's question, Bill and I have just agreed to work on this together. I'm saying it would be helpful to
Oh,
have
okay, yeah.
one additional select board member.
But you talked about the personnel committee, so that would be two people.
That would be Kathy and me.
Yeah, I don't know if Kathy wants to do it, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just saying, you said personnel committee, so, and if Sue Allen wants to be part of that, you know, Kathy, that's between the two of you.
I
But,
don't have time to.
but we do have a motion on the floor, so we should vote for it. And if it gets defeated,
I have a motion to talk about it.
no, but as a motion, you have to make a motion first to talk about
I know, but that was the motion.
That was the
That
Oh,
motion.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion now, and Kathy, I don't need to put you on the spot, so I'll make the motion that we, form a sub-team of the select board and Bill to, take another look at this public participation rule and come and work at the Bill's availability. So the members of the team would be Bill at his availability, and I volunteered to work with Bill on this. I think it would be great to have one additional, select board member. That's my motion.
Do we have a second to that?
Oh, gosh. If you remember, we're gonna be quite busy in the office.
If not, then the motion is not to go home.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I see what's written here in red. It seems a bit restrictive to me. I understand you want to take away the unanimous part. I think there could be some simpler language put in this to make it clearer. That's my thought.
Well, there's no reason why we can't make this simple language right now and get it over with if we want to. This was presented for discussion, certainly. We have every authority here as the board to talk about it and amend it and change the language. I mean, this is what we do. We don't have to go back to a committee and make it happen. We can do it right here if that's the desire of the
I
board.
feel it should be amended, but I don't feel we have to go through the whole rules of procedure because it's been on the books for a long time. It's nice to get VLCT's input, but we've worked weeks with VLCT over the personnel committee, and I don't want to spend weeks doing this. And I think Bill has put a lot of time and energy in this, and I know one of the additions to this was because of the COVID, and we had to go, visual and viral with this. And I can see the point of putting that in here because of COVID. I just like things simple, and I don't think that this, what's here, is clear to me. So those are my comments.
Kathy, I just want to clarify that my motion applied only to letter B, application, numeral 2, public participation. Only to that particular proposed rule am I suggesting we draft, and in your words, a simpler version of this, and we come to grips with, and I think this would be very good for Bill and me, and maybe just the two of us could do it.
Well, first of all, does anybody have an objection to the first part of it, which says public participation? The public must ask the chair if he or she can speak to an issue. Any information to be presented at a meeting, whether by the public or the members of the select board, must be given to the town administrator no later than noon on Thursday before their regular meeting and 4 hours before the special meeting or emergency. If everybody agrees with that, then that's okay, then we can move forward. If you don't, how would you like to see it changed? I don't see how that violates anything, quite frankly. You have to have some rules of how things get on an agenda. I mean, agenda has got to be posted on Thursday. You can't put something on Friday, it's already too late, so what's the issue?
It's very interesting because, we have no such rule for agendas. The, agenda portion of the rules of procedure are taken directly from the model, and they only state at least 48 hours prior to a regular meeting, at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting. And they do not go into any of this level of detail about the 4 hours, the exceptions, all of
No,
that.
we're not talking about the 4 hours, Sue, we're talking about the first part I just read, about having the agenda to the town administrator, no later than on Thursday.
For a regular meeting,
Yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah, does
before.
anybody have a problem with that one?
I'm saying, yes, I do.
Well, what is the problem? How can, if you have an agenda that has to be posted on Thursday, how can you amend the, you can't amend the agenda unless it's at a board meeting. And if you don't put it on the agenda, then the public who sees the agenda and sends the agenda, you can't add something because then they don't know whether or not it's gonna be on the meeting. So I don't understand the reason of why you have an objection to that.
I'm going to share that with you now, and this is precisely the reason why I think we need to take this offline.
I don't think it has to be offline, I think we work with people.
I'm just going to refer you to agendas, item 2 in the rules of procedure. At least the agendas have to be in at least 48 hours prior to a regular meeting. There is no mention in our rules of procedure about having the agendas in by Thursday. It's just simply not their job.
Well, just because the LC says it, it's not illegal.
These are the hours. These are not the LCC. These are our rules of procedure. Joe, it just makes a lot of sense. Please, it just makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry. Wendy's wanting to be it.
I just wondered if 48 hours is 48 business hours. Is that what that was about? And that's why it was Thursday ever, maybe? No?
No, in state law, almost anything you have, just like the 5 days to get your minutes done, Saturday and Sunday count as.
I can do.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that this does.
Well, obviously there's a conflict here.
Yeah.
So one is either you're gonna use the 48-hour one, or you're gonna use we have always been on the Thursday, correct?
With the reason you want plenty of time to, the more time you give to post your agenda, the more likely the public's gonna find out what's on the agenda. That's the reason we do it. And that's why we're doing it on Thursday. If you're gonna do it 48 hours, I don't know who's gonna post it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but Bill, you just punctuated the point.
Well, then you should, then either you get rid of the 48 hours and you adopt a new one, or
But no, what I'm saying is the balance that was tried to be struck when what has been read in spite, and I'm making notes on everything, I mean, writing about what you're saying, and I understand the difficulty with it, but the whole idea, don't look at it, and, I mean, it wasn't discussed, I don't remember it being discussed when whoever it was, I don't even remember who worked with me in preparing this, it wasn't discussed that we were limiting the people briefed to bring evidence to the meeting. What we don't want is people to bring stuff to the meeting at the last minute that the public has no idea that it's going to be brought up. And that's why you want it early, isn't it? So you want to some way say, now this is documentary. We're talking about document. You don't want the people to be surprised by a document that is presented at the meeting. But I also understand, on the other hand, if you find out about the meeting late, and that's why it comes in and why the vote. Now, the vote could be less than unanimous. The whole idea is that unless it is something is egregious that this person is bringing in, and is an egregious violation of, and I'm gonna use the word that you don't like, the spirit of the open meeting law, even if it's not in the open meeting law, and that is to let the public know what's gonna go on at this meeting. Unless it's something egregious, it's gonna be approved going into the meeting. I mean, it isn't that whether or not you agree with the statements that are in that document, it's whether or not that document should have been presented earlier because everybody knew about it and so on. But in the example that Al used, if it's just a resident, I don't mean to say that just a resident. If it's a resident who isn't aware of what's going on until the last minute, if they can say, I just found out about this and here's the relevant document. I can see reasonable people telling them that you can't present it. So, yeah.
Right.
So that's all. And what this was meant to do is not to have somebody have a relevant document and withhold it, hoping that fewer people would show at the meeting that might really be opposed to what they're gonna present. That was the idea of it. But I understand that there's some issues with it, and if you need to take time to go through it, then fine.
Bill,
Or just take it out and see if we have an issue with it.
yeah, Bill, I want to restate that I understand the intention of this rule. And that, like Sue said, the concept of it is something that I think we should move in the direction of. And besides, Joe has already said that it's been a longstanding practice of the select board, and it's fine with me to figure out a way to codify that in the rules. That's why I'm willing to work on it. And it sounds like Bill is willing to work on it. And maybe if the select board is willing to then just let the two of us work on it, we can come back to you with something that we see is, meets the needs of the concept, the simplification, the consistency with what we say about the agenda. And I guess that Bill and I will just have to have a spirited discussion about the open meeting law.
So we heard that this was prepared quite a while ago, and it was prepared because of COVID. And I just have a little struggle with why is it important to adopt it now when we're now back to having open meeting, people attending. And so if this was written because of COVID and doing things virtually, what's the urgency of approving it tonight? We're not doing business that way. Hey, we're going back to doing business like pre-COVID.
That's it. The other reason it came tonight is because Kathy said, it says in our procedure that we're meeting at the garage. And I said, well, that's one thing we really do have to change right away. So anyway.
Well, yeah.
And so that's why.
I have no problem if you're willing to work with Suzanne over the language, I have no problem with it. But I do have a problem for let's be realistic, next meeting.
When it's prepared,
It's
we'll bring
not,
it back.
Yeah.
with the flood and whatever is happening.
What do we do for the first meeting in September? No one is more supportive and understanding of what Bill and others are doing for the storm and the reparation of that. And, but I will also take it as a serious action item that we have to come back to the select board in some reasonable period of time.
Okay, so let's, yes, Bill.
Can I suggest that you change the rules of procedure tonight to say, not paragraph 2, just take all that out. The rules of procedure you have right now.
Yeah.
To say you're meeting at 1:17.
Okay.
That sounds good. I'm good with that.
And let me see, and
That's the only one, you really have to change it.
And, yeah, and you can leave or take out the including virtual meetings.
Right. So if we could do that, then at least we have, and then we can,
We have rules procedure.
then you can have a rules of procedure, and then you can deal with number two, and number two can be, enacted, and leave it as it was before. So, somebody make a motion to, that we do that?
So,
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor to just make those small changes, and then.
No, just that one small change,
Huh?
just the one small change.
Yeah, and then Sue and Bill will work on this thing, as time permits, hopefully get it to us in September. Is that okay? What?
Thank you very much.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, the next committee reports. The cemetery committee met, John and I and Dave Rogers took a ride up to the 5 acres that the Fisher family wants to donate to the town. It's a perfect site. The problem is there are two problems. Number one is that the whole deeding it to the town is not beneficial. So just because somebody has a requirement, what she wants to do it, which is Cheryl, what is Cheryl?
no,
All this land is in a state, so that Bill is gonna request from Cheryl, that we have an affidavit that everybody in the Fisher family is agreeing with this, because there's no sense for us to continue to do any work or surveys or anything if there's not an agreement within the family. So that's where that stands. The other issue is that the road going up to it is in absolute horrific shape. And it's been neglected by the landowners who use that road on a constant basis. So the town would then have to bring that road up to specifications, which would be pretty cheap, pretty expensive. However, there is the possibility that there might be gravel on that 5 acre site. And if there is gravel, then that would certainly lower the cost to rebuild that road. But it's a perfect place for a cemetery. But I think before we can even go any further, we need to get indication from the Fisher estate that it's okay. And then John pointed out that the next step would be then is to contact the landowners to see if there's any objection from the landowners to put a cemetery next to their property. So I think it's a very viable site. I think it's good. I don't know whether it can actually happen, but I think it's in the hands of the Fisher family now to come and give us a letter of intent. So that's where that stands. Okay, right now, you got anything to add?
Gonna make a recommendation, check with the Soil Conservation Service, they should have.
Yeah, we will.
Soil types of that.
I've already talked to Bill about that, but there's no sense going any further
Yeah.
until we get the letter of intent, so
Right.
why waste our time? Highway?
Joe, we just got, John and I are gonna have to take a look at this. We just received from V-Trans the copies of the letters that are gonna go out to the adjacent homeowners, to the Walker Bridge project. I think this is gonna have to do with the right of way. I haven't read this yet, so I'm gonna have to, John and I are gonna have to read this and then. see
Okay, well,
where
let us
we
know
go.
so we can put it on the agenda for the next
They
meeting.
already went out to the landowner. I believe.
We already have them, yeah.
Yeah, they already have the landowner issue.
Okay. I think.
So there's nothing for us to do there.
I'm not sure, but I think these are copies for the select board members, and if they are, I'm just gonna put them in your, as Bill, put them in the
Sure.
mail.
The first meeting's 8/12.
8/12?
What is 8/12? What's on
What's
8/12?
8/12.
During the morning, it's not conflicting with DCA. I know, busy.
Wow.
No, these are 4 property owners, they're scheduled the meetings, I believe what's in here are copies of the letters, and select board members are invited to participate, but as I say, I'm gonna have to just distribute it via the mail with Bill's help.
Okay. So if these letters have already gone out, then there's no reason to put it on the agenda.
No.
So it's, okay. Anything else from the highway committee? The parks committee met. Do you want to give a synopsis?
And we met with, the Alan and Marco, Matt, and Mike, who've been doing a lot of the work, coordinating the work up there, and they are gonna come back at the next meeting, I believe, the 16th, with a proposal for applying for a grant with co-signed by adjacent landowners for some amount, we're not quite sure yet, they'll make a recommendation, and they will specify what the money will be used for, so we'll have a good idea of what kinds of expenses. I would guess 80%, 90%, this board has already approved the kinds of things that they're going to use the money for, so I don't think there'll be any surprises for anybody, but they need our approval.
They did promise that they would have all the information in, by Thursday, so it can go on the agenda and be distributed to the board.
Is this a pre-application?
It's a letter of interest, yeah, letter of intent, that we plan to apply.
Okay. Anything else? Personnel committee, any reports?
We met with Jill Muir last Wednesday, Sue and I, and going over the personnel, policy. And we've got some edits that we'd like to propose. We're not completely finished, but we should be in the next couple of weeks to present our, proposals to the board.
Okay. Anything else on the personnel? Okay. Buildings committee?
The contract for the heat pumps that will be up here and in the post office was awarded to, at your meeting, to Coleman, who has done the rest of the building. When I told all the three who had given us estimates that two of them lost and the other one won, and I told, and the one that won has already put in the order for the equipment, and his time to start and put the equipment in will be based on when that is available, if that equipment is available at the end. We're hoping to have it done in time for the election at the end of the month, so that if that is warm weather, not like now, if that is warm weather, then it'll be nicer up here. And they will also install it in the post office. That's Coleman that got the bid. He isn't doing electricity. The electricity is a separate estimate that we got, and that is from Gus Plummer, who will be doing the electricity, doing the electrical hookup. And he will run the post offices off their box and us off ours. Post office then will be paying for their air conditioning, just like they do now. And to some extent their heat. And so it might reduce the costs to us of having the post office there, because we might be able to cut back on the fuel we use to heat the building. With regard to the elevator, I have made initial contact. The only architect that I found that Bill Badger I asked him again if he would please do it as one last time. He's still retired, he's still licensed. And he couldn't, but the only person he knew of that had the capacity, especially since it's a historical building and has had the relationship with the historical people in doing historical facilities, would be Stevens and Associates. So I contacted Bob Stevens, and he and the architect of that firm have talked to me. They are going to work up a proposal for the cost of doing the initial work, and then, which will give them, because you have to check with it's hard to deal with the historical society unless you have a guy who's going to actually deal with it. So the architect really should deal with that. And I tried, and it just didn't work. So anyway, he will deal with them, and if we accept his proposal, then we will pay him for the initial work, and then if we would enter into the contract, if that's who we're gonna use. And I tried other firms engineering firms that I thought would do it, and that hasn't worked out. And the person who was gonna do it voluntarily thought more about it. And he said, because this is a public building, even though he would be working with Bill Badger, who has a license, it is an opening if anything goes wrong for people to come after the town and him, but mainly after the town. He said, you need to have the thing just straight, fully licensed person in Vermont do it. So that's why, that's why we went back to our regular, not a regular, an architect that is fully licensed and prepared to do it here. But he isn't gonna do anything until we agree to a price for the initial proposal. And with regard to that, it appears, thanks to Suzanne sent us an article, that we are getting the county money, so we should be receiving 1/2 of 197 instead of 1/2 of 7.
Yeah.
So that would give us, might be enough. That should be enough for the elevator, especially since we have other funds available, including the Wyndham Foundation. Yeah, so we should be able to do that, and if that's the case, it'd be really nice if we could do it sometime before spring. We're working on ADA compliance here, as you can see on every agenda that we put out is based on the fact that we have this, and if they need more accommodation, they're to call, and if the only way we can accommodate them is meet downstairs, then that's what we're going to do. So.
Well, you mentioned architect repeatedly, but it seems like when you start building an elevator, we really ought to be talking engineer.
Well, Stevens is an engineering firm that does architecture, that has an architect who would on that. I should have said that more.
Good, good. Well, my son is a contractor and he gets stuff that's done by an architect all the time. He says, it looks pretty, but it isn't gonna work, you know. Engineering wise, it's not gonna work.
Actually, it went the other way. When he said Stevens, and I said, well, does he have an architect in the firm? And he does, so it's both. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Wastewater, Sue, before you're gonna meet with.
I'm meeting with Meg and Chris, who've been doing the public education part tomorrow. I did invite Matt, he's just too busy, he couldn't make it, and didn't object to not attending.
And I've instructed Bill to, that Sue and I have talked, that we'd like to set up a meeting, whether virtual or in person, with Kleinbond and with the other people, just to move on and see what's going, but because of the flood, we've just put that off to, there's no rush on this thing, because we're way far away from any acceptance of funds and contracts, but we need to start working with Kleinbond to a contract once the funds are in. So that's in the works, or it's in our minds, but the flood is, one of the storms, it's kind of.
Joe, how did your conversation with Matt?
I haven't talked to Matt, we played kind of, I was gonna call him, and he wasn't there, and he called me back, and so I my grandkids, and I've had family here all week left, so it's been hectic for me, and so, I'll get to Matt sooner than waiting. Matt and I just talked on the telephone, and we all gonna get together, and he is gonna, he wants to be involved with the engineering part of it, which is great, so that's great.
Joe, once before I asked about, telling the public when, sort of a timeline, or how you get from here to there, when does the public get to participate? And at that time, your answer was, well, it's not up to the select board, it's up to the wastewater committee.
No more.
But now that it's back to the wastewater, or back to the select board, I would renew my request to know what the timeline procedures, when do the public get to participate and raise concerns and issues? So.
But we don't know
You
that.
don't have the answers, I know.
We don't know.
But we would still like to know the answers.
Right, no, we don't know that yet. First of all, we don't even know if we're gonna get the money. Okay, so that's number one. And so once we have the authority of the money, and that's the reason why Stu and I want to start the meeting, is start to prepare the procedure of how we're gonna go forward with, not only with the engineering study, but how are we going to educate the public and have a series of meetings so that people are being informed of how this project is gonna work, what it's gonna cost, where is it gonna happen, and all those kinds of things. And Sue and I's vision is that we will have multiple meetings with the individuals, because it has to be sold to the public, whether they accept it or not, but you have to try to sell it. It's a salesman's job, and they need to know everything before they say yea and nay. So, Alan, that will happen. You can rest assured of that, don't worry about it, that's important.
I'm not worried, I just want to know.
Do you have anything else to add? Like everyone? Public comment, any public comment?
So August 12th, 8 o'clock, BC is to meet here, your tax appeals. August 31st, from 10 to 7 p.m., there will be voting upstairs here for the school vote.
What day is that, August what?
August 31st is the vote, it's a Tuesday. So ballots will be needed to count at the end at 7 p.m. when we close the election. We're voting, I'm going to be posting the warning, and I will have absentee ballots available. I will put that out there. It's to accept the withdrawal of the Westminster School from the district along with their debt. So it's a one article, yes or no.
Are we gonna get everybody, are we gonna need the whole crew to count the ballots? No? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know who can and can't make it, so, I mean, it's a yes, no, it's gonna be very quick, but right now, if you've got a commitment, let me know, because no, it's probably not gonna take all 12 of us, but I still can't say how many I need if they can't all make it, so.
Okay.
Kim, you said it was to accept the withdrawal and their debt?
But
But
they're taking
they withdraw their debt, not to accept their debt.
no, but they're taking their debt and they're building with that.
Correct.
And that's the first thing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Addison and Grafton have to do this vote.
Nope.
And Westminster is doing a vote on the same day, but theirs is, to accept it. And also to, they're also gonna have board members, configuration also.
For Grafton School?
Grafton School will be probably more, the March election. I think right now Westminster wants to have an election to have, their members actually working, not formally, but together, that are elected for the budget process going forward to their March, because this isn't gonna happen until 2023.
So there's no voting for the school board members for Grafton?
No, not this time around, no, that will happen in March, as far as I know, according to Jack.
Other business? Okay, if there's no other business, we have, the next item is executive session. We need to have a vote to go into executive session.
I'm gonna make a motion. I move to adjourn to executive session with select board members only for Title I, VSA, Section 313A3.
Who will the second that?
I didn't hear it.
Go ahead, say it again, Susan.
I move to adjourn to executive session with select board members only for Title I, VSA, Section 313A3. What, come on,
Is there a second to this? there was no second, there was no.
I just want to, that's fine, that's certainly part of the process. I wanted to adjourn into executive session because it's really the only statutorily available way for the select board to discuss sensitive matters. And the other option is to discuss them publicly.
Bill, did you have anything you want to say? Okay, we have, we need to have an adjournment, motion?
Move to adjourn?
Second? Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so, Sue, when you go ahead and meeting tomorrow, I have a thick horse that I said going to.
Don't everybody,
So I can't do that.
stop talking for a minute,
Okay.
or you're gonna get recorded.
Okay.
And just, you have to wait a second longer. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, explain to that I have a sick horse.
Yeah.
And, so that I can't do that, but I have full support.
Yeah.
And they should give us any